"I made your coffee, Daniel," she said, sliding the mug across the counter. Her smile too sharp, too rehearsed. Something about the way her fingers lingered on the handle made my stomach twist. "I'm Daniel Whitman, 43, high school guidance counselor in suburban New Jersey, used to reading people, spotting the lies before they had a chance to settle. But nothing in all those years prepared me for the look in my wife's eyes that morning. Caroline, my wife of 16 years, 39, successful real estate agent with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos, had green eyes that once held warmth. Now, they calculated something dark. And then there was Margaret, my mother-in-law, 68, sharp-tongued retired bank manager, living with us since her hip surgery 5 months ago. She treated our house like her boardroom and me like a minor inconvenience. I held the mug, inhaling the vanilla-sweet aroma tainted with something acrid. My instincts screamed danger. Caroline had never brought me coffee in my office, never on a Saturday morning. The 2 sugars, splash of cream, wrong. I'd switched to black coffee 3 years ago. From the kitchen, Margaret's voice cut through, sharp as a blade. "Caroline, my coffee. You promised it 15 minutes ago." Caroline's face flickered, annoyance barely hidden. "Coming, mother." "Daniel, enjoy yours." Mine's for her first. I carried the mug into the living room. Careful, every movement deliberate. Margaret was in her favorite chair, judging family photos on the mantel like a general inspecting recruits. "These pictures make you look tired," she said, peering at me. "Caroline deserves someone ambitious, not a counselor wasting his days on teenage nonsense." I set the coffee beside her empty cup. "Caroline said yours is the priority, as always," I said. Her eyes gleamed, that familiar spark of superiority. She lifted the mug, unaware that the drink meant for me had been switched. 2 weeks ago, Caroline had increased my life insurance from $250,000 to $2,500,000 for the kid's future, she said over dinner. She'd asked about my will, about who would handle my affairs if something happened. I'd brushed it off at the time. Now, holding that cup, the weight of the situation crashed into me. My mind flashed to Grant Thompson, Caroline's colleague. Handsome, successful, always conveniently around for late property showings. Margaret adored him, constantly comparing me to him. He was the kind of man Caroline could sell $1 million property to with a wink. And that wink, I realized, had been meant for me all along, except not for me. I watched Margaret sip the coffee. She didn't even flinch. A moment later, her eyes widened, her body stiffened, and she gasped. I froze. My instincts had saved me. Caroline's face shifted from feigned sweetness to panic. Margaret collapsed. The reality hit me like a freight train. The poison wasn't meant for her. It was meant for me. But maybe fate had its own sense of justice. Years of subtle manipulations, whispered conversations over dinner about policies, plans, and replacements, all unraveled in that single, sharp morning. I realized then that life could appear perfect from the outside. Beautiful house, thriving children, Sunday smiles. But underneath, darkness can hide behind familiar faces. That morning, my instincts were the only shield between me and the people who claimed to love me. And as I called 911, watching Caroline's composed mask slip, I knew nothing would ever look the same again. I watched Margaret lift the mug, the steam curling around her face like a halo she didn't deserve. Every cruel comment she'd ever made, every comparison to better men, every snide remark about how Caroline could have done better flashed through my mind. My silence felt deliberate, a shield, even a kind of justice. "At least she remembers how I like my coffee," Margaret said, holding the mug to her lips. Knowing Caroline, she probably hadn't gotten it exactly right. Vanilla, when Margaret preferred hazelnut. But the need to feel important outweighed her taste. She sipped deliberately, and I watched her throat move as she swallowed. My heart hammered, but my face remained calm. The same expression I used when teens confessed cheating, hiding pregnancies, or sneaking cigarettes. "Vanilla," Margaret murmured, taking another sip. "Though it has an odd aftertaste, metallic, almost." She frowned. Caroline had never been good at coffee. I'd taught her the kitchen, hosting, even baking, but she'd never learned the subtleties. Meanwhile, I scrolled through my emails on my phone, pretending to check messages, hands steady, the trembling gone. The decision had been made. Whatever Caroline had planned for me, it was now coursing through her mother instead. You know, Daniel, Margaret said between sips, I've been thinking about your career. Maybe it's time to consider something bigger. Grant Thompson could probably use an assistant at his firm. Filing, answering calls, menial work, yes, but better than wasting a psychology degree on kids who'll likely end up in trouble anyway. I rose slowly, nodding. Thoughtful of you, Margaret. I should get back to work. Work? She scoffed. Reading sob stories from teenagers who can't manage basic life challenges. When I was your age, we had discipline. Common sense. No counselors needed. I returned to the kitchen just as Caroline emerged from the pantry, her face flushed, her hands trembling slightly. Where's your coffee? She asked immediately, eyes scanning the counter. Left it with Margaret, I said casually, opening the fridge for orange juice. Figured you wouldn't mind making another. Her color drained. The mug in her hands shook, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim. You gave it to Mother. Is there a problem? I kept my tone innocent. It's just coffee, right? Same special blend you were making for her. No. I mean, yes, it's just coffee, she stammered, setting it down with a clatter. Mother has preferences. She doesn't like vanilla. Hazelnut is what she prefers. She seemed to enjoy it when I left, I said, sipping my juice. Going on about Grant's opportunities as usual. Caroline froze, her hand moving toward her phone and then halting. Who would she call? What could she say? For the first time in months, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. I need to check on Mother, she muttered, moving toward the living room. I followed, keeping the confused husband act. You just bought that milk yesterday, right? I asked casually, noticing her distraction. She didn't answer. Her heels clicked rapidly on the hallway runner, and I stayed close. Phone ready, 911 already typed into the keypad. Margaret's chair was still in place, but something was wrong. The mug had fallen, coffee spreading across the Persian rug she'd insisted we buy. Her face had turned gray, hands clutching her chest, breathing shallow and rapid. I feel dizzy, she gasped, eyes wide with panic. Caroline, something's wrong. Caroline dropped to her knees beside her mother. Mother, stay with me. Just breathe. Her composure finally shattered, tears streaming down her face, makeup streaking in dark lines. But we all knew it wasn't going to be fine. The coffee meant for me was doing its work, just in the wrong body. I dialed 911, voice calm and steady. My mother-in-law appears to be having a cardiac event. She's 68, conscious but in distress. We need an ambulance immediately. Margaret convulsed, her body sliding to the floor. Violent spasms made her rigid, eyes rolling back, foam forming at the corners of her mouth. The smell of coffee mixed with something acidic filled the air. Caroline screamed, holding her mother, helpless against the convulsions. You knew, she whispered to me later, rage and devastation replacing grief. You knew and you let her drink it. I knew what you were planning, I said quietly, keeping the dispatcher on the line. You intended this for me. You and Grant Thompson planned this for months. Her mouth opened and closed, words failing her. How did you know about Grant? Every email, every text about the insurance, your plans after my death. I knew for 3 weeks. Paramedics arrived moments later, taking over. A spilled coffee cup revealed a strange white residue. Could be poisoning, one said. Rachel couldn't speak, just sat, holding her mother's hand. The coffee vanilla blend, I explained. It was meant for me. Detective Naomi Bennett arrived shortly after. Margaret was rushed to the hospital, unconscious but alive. Caroline sat silently, staring at the coffee stain on the rug. Mr. Whitman, Detective Bennett said, surveying the scene. Tell me exactly what happened. I handed over the evidence. Emails, texts, receipts, all proof of a meticulously planned attempted murder, including plans for a staged suicide and falsified signatures. Caroline and Grant had plotted my death for months, but the plan had failed. Rachel, Caroline, was arrested on the spot. Grant Thompson was taken in hours later after more evidence surfaced, including drafts of suicide notes and a history of manipulation. Margaret survived, though with permanent nerve damage. I moved to a small downtown apartment, closer to school, quieter, simpler. Emily, my daughter, came home from college, still shocked. Why didn't you just leave if you knew? Because leaving wouldn't have stopped them, I said, pouring coffee from my own pot. Sometimes, letting someone's evil reveal itself is the only defense. Ethan, my son, struggled to process it. She tried to kill you over money? Yes, over a fantasy life with another man. They lost sight of what mattered. I explained. Months later, my routine returned. Black coffee, no sugar, quiet mornings. I met Laura Collins, a history teacher with a genuine laugh, who appreciated me for who I am. She joined me for coffee after work. It's safe, she joked. I smiled, realizing for the first time in months that trust could exist again, slowly, cautiously. The lesson was clear. Poison only works if you drink it. Caroline had relied on 16 years of trust, my habit of taking what she offered without question. Teenagers taught me to question everything, especially unusual kindness. Every morning now, I brew my own coffee, black, sunlight streaming through the east-facing windows. It tastes like survival, freedom, and life itself. Some might say it's nothing special. I call it everything.